Hello, my name is Ken Miller, the president of StateWay Logistics. I'm here to host the Hall of Fame podcast brought to you by One Truck America. We got a great episode today. We have Joe Morrow, we have Alec, both from Alpha Drivers. They're going to talk about their truck, Purple Haze. They're going to talk about their partnership with Volvo. They're going to talk about their iTorque package, which is a special package that improves productivity and efficiency. They're going to talk about their driver consulting business, and they're going to help young drivers advise that are entering the industry how to improve your efficiency and at the end of the day, improve your paycheck. Looking forward to it. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. To the Hall of Fame podcast. We have Alec and Joel from Alpha Drivers, and he's also going to talk a little bit about the Purple Haze. So I think this should be a very interesting episode. Well, I would like to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you guys do, and we'll go from there. So who wants to go first?
I've been in trucking and transportation for around 36 or 37 years now. I am an everyday driver, so I've accumulated about just over 5 million miles over the road. We do transportation. I'm out on the road every day. I'm delivering freight just like everybody else, but we also have a testing and consulting company that we work with some of the OEM component manufacturers and Volvo trucks as the manufacturer as well. We do some testing work for them. Which is interesting. We get some pre-production stuff from time to time, and we get some stuff that's just fun to work with. And fuel mileage has been a thing for me for the last at least 25 years, maybe closer to 30. Mm-hmm. When I first started driving, I done the outlaw thing like everybody does when they're young. You get out, you go crazy and you do things that really don't make a whole lot of sense when you first start, young and dumb. So yeah, I was the epitome of that for sure. But nowadays we're data driven. We look at fuel efficiency, we look at productivity, we look at reliability, and we analyze things and try to bring things into perspective and how to use specific components and truck specs in certain duty cycles. And so we'll let Alec go from here because he's my data guy that analyzes a lot of the information that I collect on the road.
Yeah, I'll let him go in a second, and I'm going to ask you some questions about each so you can help people like fuel efficiency and productivity. So Alec, do you want to go first, or you want me to dive? I have some questions just about the driver consulting. That probably will help our driver listeners out there. So Alec, Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Go ahead. I'll just do a quick intro.
Sure.
So while Joel and Travis are out on the road, as Joel puts it, I'm the eye in the sky. I look at all the data, aggregate the data, do all the dispatching, the load planning, maintenance, vacations, pretty much everything after Joel and Travis, deliver the freight or even beforehand, but everything that's not in the truck is what's on my shoulders. So all the data that the two of them, soon to be three, generate, we look at and analyze and work directly with our OEM partners to make recommendations, some marketing advice on, basically coming from the grassroots transportation side of things.
Makes sense. I like it. All right, let's dive into that a little bit. So, obviously, are you guys running, Joel, are you running OTR? Are you running regional? Are you staying in one area of the country? Just trying to understand how far you are.
No, I run all 48 states.
All 48. That's right.
Now, from time to time, I'll do some regional work when it makes sense to do it. I'll even do some local work when it makes sense to do it. So I'm open to anything. And in fact, we like diversity of duty cycle in order to really push the equipment to the limits and to really understand, is this only an over-the-road spec, or will this spec also work in a super regional duty cycle or even a local pickup and delivery type duty cycle?
All right, great. So there's a lot of companies out there for drivers, especially new drivers coming along. You've been there. 30 something years ago that give out fuel efficiency bonuses. What would you advise you would give to a 1 year, 2 year driver on improving his fuel efficiency?
Number one, it's attitude. If you don't have the right attitude going in, it's like anything else in life. A positive attitude works wonders for results. You've got to be positive. You've got to have the right attitude. The key to fuel efficiency, probably the biggest part of it is simply time and speed management. Just because the speed limit is posted doesn't mean you have to drive that fast. You need to figure out how fast do I actually need to get the job done. And we like to say, run as slow as possible, only as fast as necessary. That's the key. And speed, there is a hidden cost to speed that people don't understand. They look at speed and they think, oh, productivity. And, there's diminishing returns with speed. And there's a thing called the speed delta degradation. The higher your cruise control set speed, kind of the lower your average speed gets because you're constantly running up on people, applying the brakes. So when we're looking at like a 58 or a 59 mile an hour cruise control set speed, able to average 50 or 51 mile an hour for the day for our total overall average, where when we run 65, a lot of times we're only gaining maybe a mile an hour overall. And it's just not worth the extra constant acceleration and braking, which reduces fuel efficiency and drives up maintenance cost.
Quite a bit. Okay. All right, let's move on another way, you guys, because I think if you look at drivers today, gone are the days, for the most part, hourly drivers. So people being paid piece rate productivity deals. So that's really what pay is. So what would you give to that same young driver 1 year in, says, man, I'd like to make some more money. There's unlimited freight here. How do I increase my productivity?
So I'm going to let Alec take this because we've actually bumped up against this situation. Alec had mentioned Travis, who is my stepson that drives for us. And I also have my daughter coming on board as well. And so we addressed this specifically. I'm not a fan of pay by the mile or percentage, and I'll let Alec take it from there.
So, Ken, one of the differences is that if you pay by the mile, piecemeal as you put it, or pay by the hour, neither one by themselves work. So what we have is a hybrid. We pay a combination of productivity, so many cents per mile, and we pay by the hour. Once that driver comes on duty in the morning to the time that he does his post trip in the evening, they're on the clock. They're away from home. They deserve to get paid, whether the wheels are turning.
100%. Yes.
So if they're at the loading dock, they're getting paid. If they're taking their 30-minute break, they're getting paid. If they're getting DOT'd or maintenance or whatever it is, they still get paid. If they have to exercise their judgment, the weather is crappy or the wind is blowing in Wyoming, they need to pull over, they get paid. So that's why we do both. So it's not necessarily a fuel mile per gallon bonus per se, because the problem with that is, and we've analyzed this quite heavily, there's a lot of variability on the fuel economy due to conditions that are beyond, externalities beyond the driver's control. So we don't want to penalize them. But when you get enough history, you can construct a statistical model so that you can say, hey, if you get 95%, 95% of that, you can get a bonus on top of that. We haven't gone to that yet. Don't know that we have to, because if we have the proper pay structure and the proper motivations, the driver, if he drives slow to get good fuel economy, as Joel described, then it's going to take a little bit longer to make that trip. He still gets paid because he's getting paid by the hour. So you've got to have the right incentive program to make the right decisions. And I think Joel and I have that in place.
All right. I like it. I definitely agreed with you. I definitely think that is a better way to look at pay for drivers. It's just a matter of does the industry start adopting? I know some places have started to adopt that model. Hopefully it becomes a little more widespread. All right, let's move on a little. Let's talk a little about the Purple Haze. You mentioned something in one of your videos said you have to trade power or efficiency, but you'd like to have both. Would you explain that to me?
So with today's downsped engine technology, we have a different power curve on the engines than what we're typically used to. And engines today make much more torque and horsepower lower in the RPM range than they did in the past. This allows the engine to run at a lower piston speed, or RPM generically applied, but it's really what we're talking about is the piston speed, and that drives higher efficiency levels. When we were making horsepower higher in the RPM range in the past, we had to gear the truck in order to turn higher RPMs to get to the horsepower. Mm-hmm. Today, we can use a much more economical rear axle ratio, and we still have the horsepower because it's occurring at a lower range. So today we actually have, people like to throw around gear ratios and they like to single out gear ratios. Lots of truck drivers, they love talking about, I got a 308 or a 355 gear ratio. We actually can leverage a 2.15 rear axle ratio with an overdrive transmission and outpull and accelerate that 308 axle ratio that a lot of guys tend to lean towards performance with today's downsped engines because of that power curve. So today we can have the best of both worlds through aggressive downsped gearing and the proper power curve on the engine with that low horsepower and low torque capability that we see today.
All right. Okay, talk to me. Let me make sure I get this right. The truck that Volvo made, is it called the iTorque? Talk to me about that truck.
So the iTorque is the name of the spec package that we put together that leverages all the technologies that we just discussed here. So we have the D13 turbo compounded engine, which is just a monster at low RPM. This truck will go down the road at 850 RPM, pulling 80,000 pounds without any issue. Okay. So a lot of torque down low, and we have to gear it appropriately. So in order to leverage that 2.15 rear axle ratio I was talking about with an overdrive transmission, we had to come up with a transmission that had better starting gears or lower gears or a wider overall ratio. And Volvo had just that weapon in their arsenal was their 13 and 14 speed I-shift variants. And so that's what we done. We put a 14 speed I-shift in here that has the deepest reduction of any on-highway transmission in the industry. So we have plenty of startability, even though that rear axle ratio is at 2.15. And then we have a whole lot of top end because we're a 7.85 overdrive ratio. So we've got it on both ends. We've got very deep reduction to start a very heavy load, and we have a decent overdrive with a very aggressive rear axle ratio that allows us to cruise down the road. 72 mile an hour is just about 1,000 RPM in this truck.
And the Purple Haze has that setup, and that's what you're sitting in. You're sitting at right now, just so we know.
Absolutely.
All right, we can see it. So we can see it in the background. Okay, tell me about your Volvo partnership and anything that you want to disclose. How did that come about? Obviously, you're feeding them great data that they're using to develop better trucks. So talk to me about that partnership.
So this started, it's been 15 years ago, I guess now. Time flies. So what had happened was my dad had owned trucks for a manufacturing business that he owned, and he had a 6x2 truck back in 1968. And at the time, I didn't even know what a 6x2 was. I just knew that it was a little different than the rest of the trucks. And that's the truck that I learned on. It was a 1968 International cab over. And that's what I cut my teeth in. And of course, as I learned more about trucks, I understood the efficiency advantages of the 6x2 powertrain and how to optimize things to make it work. And I had to do that out of necessity because that was the only truck I had, I just couldn't go out and trade it in for a 6x4, which is much more common here in the States because it wasn't mine. And my dad wasn't going to spend the money to do that. So he's like, make it work and figure it out. So I'd made it work, and I figured some things out, and I wanted to buy a new truck. And I went to Kenworth, I went to Freightliner, I went to Peterbilt. I went to all the OEMs, and just kind of out of the whim, on a whim, I stopped at a Volvo dealership, and expecting them to tell me what everybody else did. Why would you want that? That's crazy. And I talked to the sales guy, and he dials the phone and hands it to me, and there's a Swedish guy on the other end, and he says, "What are you trying to do?" And I said, "I want to build a 6x2 like they do in Europe." And he said, "I'll be up tomorrow." And he jumped on a plane out of Greensboro, and he flew up the next day. And the rest is kind of history. We just kind of laid plans, and we put together a truck, and that's kind of how I got involved with testing and consulting.
All right. Well, thank you. One last question then before I have you guys close out. Just in general, you've been driving for 30 years. You're obviously extremely successful at it. For the new crop of drivers, there isn't a lot entering the driving space. Would you have any general advice for them? What would you say?
So
wait a minute.
Right
is it your daughter that's joining soon?
Yes.
What's her name? You want to say her name, or do you want to? All right. Yeah. What advice did you give her?
Right. It's do your homework. I mean, study. That's the first thing. If you're going through driving school, pay attention to everything that they're telling you. Now, when you get out of driving school, you're going to get all kinds of conflicting advice and conflicting recommendations. But remember the basics that they taught you. Just remember there's some goofiness out here in the world, and you'll hear some funny things, but stay focused. Understand your time management, and anything that you do in any aspect of the industry. And it's so easy to do research now. Get online and research. If you're thinking about going to work for a company, background check and research everything you can about that company, and do your homework. So the great thing with my daughter is she gets to come with me. You know what I mean? And so I'm gonna bring her up with everything that I know, and it's gonna get transferred to her, and that's great. I've done the same thing with my stepson Travis, who's out driving right now, and he's just killing it. I mean, he went to the military. He was served 4 years. He came out. He was a truck driver in the military. I had him for almost a year and a half.
It's 88 Mike, huh?
And yeah.
Army, yeah. I know. I was in the Army.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And he's doing very, very well for himself. So you can make it in trucking. You have to stay focused. You have to pay attention. You have to do your research, and it's all about attitude at the end of the day. Positive attitudes. That's the most important thing.
And that's really, I tell people all the time, it's how you attack everything. Try to be positive. Worry about the controllables. Your attitude. Show up with a great attitude. Work hard. Do the extra steps. Yep. Those are the things that you can control.
Yes.
You can't control the idiot going down the street, but your preventive driving can surely control you hitting them. So,
absolutely agree. You're knocking it out of the ballpark. Control what you can control. Everything doesn't go perfect, but at the end of the day, if you take care of the things you can control, everything's going to work out in the end.
Everything's going to work out. All right. Well, in closing, is there anything else you guys want to tell us about Alpha Drivers or the Purple Haze, or anything in closing you guys want to get on the episode? Or just go ahead and let me hear it.
Well, one thing I would offer is to piggyback on what Joel said. A lot of things are changing, and they're changing rapidly. And some of the guys who have been in the industry for a long time find the rate of change a little bit disconcerting and very unsettling. Mm-hmm. Like right now, rates are really low. We have a global economy. Things are much more complex than, Joel's dad, that time. It's going to be even more so when Travis, Connor, and Haley take the helm. So the rate of change, in some respects, younger people, I think, are better equipped mentally for the rate of change because they've kind of grown up with that. At the same time, the actual job of driving and managing the vehicle and things like that, the long-term guys have some advantages. So hopefully with Joel and I, we can try to instill the younger person's rate of change and acceptance of change and help to embrace that with some of the, and we bring a lot of sophistication to the industry by virtue of Alpha Drivers, and going to be doing some more things. So that is part of the excitement that I believe for Joel and I to transfer that legacy knowledge to the younger folks, and so that they can appreciate the rate of change. And I think that's really the essence of what Joel and I are trying to bring to the industry as well.
All right. Joel, you have anything to close out with?
It's all about professionalism today. I think that you'll stand out in the crowd. It's a lot of times I think we romanticize about the outlaw trucking and the Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit.
I mean, I lived that for a few years, and I don't ever care to go back. You don't make any money. You wreck your health. You wreck your life. Apply intelligence to the situation. Analyze things, do your homework, look at the data, and run it as a business and not a lifestyle would be my advice. I get it. Some guys just love being out here. I'm one of them that do. I mean, I could have been in an office a long time ago. I'm not an office guy, but sometimes the whole romantic lifestyle aspect of things can really get you off track and sideways. You always have to keep the business component of trucking. Even if you're a company driver, you have to understand why you're out here and why you're doing what you're doing, or your level of frustration will get very high, and your thoughts will start to run away with you. So you have to be careful when you're out on the road by yourself. It's easy you got a lot of time to think. So understand why you're doing what you're doing, and have goals, and don't forget about the business part of it, the lifestyle part of it. I know a lot of people are interested in, but this is a business at the end of the day, and we're out here to make money, and just keep that in mind.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for taking the time. This was Alpha Drivers, a great episode, and I wish you guys the best. I hope your delivery seemed to have went well, so good luck on the rest of the day. And thank you for being on the Hall of Fame.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Happy Memorial Day.
Yes, you guys too. Thank you for your service, Joe. Thank you. What a great conversation with the Alpha Driver guys. Amazing. Thank you, Joel and Alec, for coming on. Thank you for talking about the Purple Haze. Thank you for talking about the iTorque and your partnership with Volvo. Wow. Great episode. I hope you guys love it. Thank you.